Hi guys! Today I want to show you the education difference between the Amish and the public schools. Now, I'm only talking about schoolwork, not like the things that we would learn at home. And first of all, I want to show you the difference between the diplomas. This was my diploma in the Amish school. When I graduated from 8th grade, my teacher basically just colored a picture and printed out something. Now, my real diploma that the government recognizes was from my GED that I just completed, which this is what it looks like. So now the government really has my records of education. This is the Amish school that I attended. If I look at my schoolwork from the Amish school, which I have a lot of it here, I will show you guys, but there's a lot of things that is just very different, and it's like the Amish made up their own education. You can kind of see that when you read the sentences and all the schoolwork. But one of the reasons that I believe that the Amish don't have much education as the public school is because, for example, science. They don't teach science at all. It would go against their beliefs because in science, you would take something and you would find something that you can change for the better, and you would try different things in order to find a better solution. Well, in the Amish, you're not supposed to question, like I mentioned in all of my videos. You're just supposed to do what you're told. So if you would take science, then it would go against everything that they believe. I believe that the reason that the Amish don't have much education is because they want to, it's another form of control to keep people from leaving the Amish. They want the Amish children to only be exposed to certain things so that they have even a bigger chance of staying in the Amish. Because like I mentioned before, staying in the Amish, if you were born there, is very important to them. Now, we did get taught some very basic education in the Amish school, of course, but it's still, the teachers only have 8th grade education just like everyone else, and they kind of teach whatever they want to. They still teach the subjects, certain subjects. My teacher, I remember we had a specific arithmetic book, and she only taught some pages. She didn't teach all of it at all. But when I was taking my GED classes, I learned a lot of things, and it was really easy for me because of so much that I have learned since leaving the Amish. My husband has taught me so much. I started my GED classes in August, and I had my social studies test in September, my science test in October, and then in November I had a math test and a reading language arts test. My best score was in math, which is funny because I was not good in math in the Amish schools. But it's a way different way of teaching when it comes to my GED teacher or the Amish teachers. Math score, I actually reached in the college ready category. You have to have at least 145 score to pass. My reading language arts was my worst score, but I am really thankful that I have completed my GED now. So some of the things that people might not realize that the Amish don't know anything about would be like the rain cycle. That has to do with science. The periodic table, I've never known what that was until my husband told me, like a little bit before we got married. Chemical reactions, that was something I learned in the GED class when we were doing science. Punnett squares, I had no idea what that was. It's very simple, but we never learned that in school. The food web and photosynthesis. If we wanted to know why the grass is green, we were told that it's because God made it green, but you don't learn anything about that in school. Anything about nutrition and health, the solar system, we don't learn anything like that. The only thing is we had to memorize all the planets' names. That's it. That's the only thing we have learned about other planets in our solar system. Anatomy or physics or gravity, we haven't learned anything about that. And the magnetic fields. Also, we don't learn about bacteria. You know, when you wash your hands properly or your towels that you use in the kitchen or the bathroom. That's some things I have been learning just recently, actually, because we are not told about bacteria. Of course, we know there is something like bacteria, but we are not taught anything about it in school. And usually at home, you're only taught how to work, like in the barn, in the garden, in the house, cleaning, baking, that stuff. So you don't learn anything really about all of this science stuff that you would typically learn in a public school. As far as music in the Amish schools, the only thing we do is we have songbooks that we would sing out of. This is English songbooks. We also had German songbooks, like 1, 2 to 3 songs every morning and every evening. We would sing it all together in the whole schoolhouse, and that's all we had for music. And then for spelling, this is an English spelling test book that we use. It's just a homemade thing, and the teacher told each grade their word, and we had to write it down. Now, I had perfect spelling for almost all the years that I went to school. And then also, this is German spelling book. So like I've mentioned in other videos, the Bible that the Amish read is half is written in German, the other half is in English. Some Amish communities, it's only written in German, but we don't have any language classes. This is only words that are spelled in German. We don't know what these words mean, but there is spelling tests that we just have to spell the words right in German. And as far as art, the only thing we did in Amish school for art was color pictures and maybe a little bit more creative on the pictures, maybe use some different crayons or markers or paint or something. That's the only thing I remember for art. I still have all of my report cards for every year. We got 1 report card per year, and I got a lot of rewards as well. Perfect attendance and honor roll almost every year, not quite. But remember that the Amish school education is very different. Now, also, this is my achievement test papers. It's very different than any public school. So like I said, Amish get out of school at 8th grade. And for example, this is what I mentioned earlier about using Amish circumstances, I guess, in the sentences. And this is for the achievement test. Teacher Esther taught a total of 35 8th graders. Teacher Betty taught 20% more 8th graders than Esther did. How many 8th graders did Teacher Betty teach? So these are Amish words, Amish names, 8th graders. It all has to do with the Amish and the Amish lifestyle. Let's go to a different one. Mr. Miller needs 50 pieces of lumber, each of which must be 2 inches by 4 inches by 9 feet long. This is how many board feet? So this is all Amish names again and Amish related. That's what it was throughout all the school years. So you know that it's a very different education than what the rest of the education system in the real world is. Another subject we had was English, and we just had to circle a word here, like the children saying good or well on Tuesday. And remind you again, this is the 8th grade achievement test, the final test of an 8th grader before we would graduate school. And then we had like 3 pages of what we would call geography. Now, this is the only time that it ever mentions U.S. social studies and Ohio history in the achievement test. So in school, we would have one book. It's a hardcover book, pretty big. It's just called geography. That's the only thing we have done in school. And we just have to memorize the words and put it into our test. Now, on the achievement test, we had to do a little bit more, but we don't really learn much at all about any other country. And also, the way that my teacher explained it and everything, when I was growing up Amish until just literally in the last few years, I thought most of this stuff was just stories. It was not true, but I came to realize that it was true. And then the other part of our achievement test was we had to write all of the townships and then all of the counties and also the presidents, as well as the states and capitals. And we had to write everything with the exact right letters and all of that. Those papers were on our achievement test, and that's all there was to it. I got a 93 on my achievement test. Obviously, it is very different than public schools. And when I left the Amish, I realized that the government does not recognize the Amish school education because I was trying to find a job, and I found out the hard way. I had to send proof that I did went to school and that I did have education. But now I do have real proof because I took my GED now, and I have the real evidence now. So as far as math, this formula sheet that I got from my GED teacher to help me in math, I've never seen it before. I remember like pi r² when I was in like 7th or 8th grade. I don't know what it means. I didn't understand it. Most of us in school, Amish school, did not understand it. We had just had to memorize some things. We only did it for a little bit, and I couldn't have told anyone what it meant because our teacher explained stuff differently. It was more about memorizing things and not about, I don't know, it's hard to explain. First of all, algebra. That was the first subject that I started learning in my GED, and we never had a subject about algebra in Amish school, ever. I didn't even know what that meant. We did inequalities and slope. There's a lot of slope questions on the GED test, and I had no idea what that meant because we don't learn that in Amish school. Then there's functions and quadratics, and I don't remember ever learning anything about that. Now, the next one is ratios and proportions. We did learn about ratios and proportions. I do remember that. Simple interest, I think we did learn something about simple interest, but the way that our teacher in GED class explained it, we did not learn that. It was very simple. Median, mode, and range. We never learned that. We did learn like how to get the average of things, but that's it. We didn't learn those words and what each one meant. We did not learn anything about combinations, like if you have a spinning wheel and 3 of them are blue, 3 of them are green, and 2 of them are red or whatever, how to figure out what's the probability it would land on green. Like, we never learned anything like that in the Amish school. And then the last one is geometry. I never knew what that meant in the Amish school either. Now, there's not much to learn here. You know, the Pythagorean theorem. We've never learned that in Amish school. I had no idea what that means, but it's fairly simple. In the Amish school, we had an arithmetic book called Strayer Upton Arithmetic. Some other schools in the Amish had like a different one, and we only learned some of the pages in there, and whatever my teacher didn't want to teach or she didn't know how to do it, then we didn't do it. And we called it arithmetic, we never called it math, but it's the same thing, I think. As far as RLA, Reading Language Arts, in my GED class, I said that I got the lowest score in that. And the thing is, it's hard to study much for this. In Amish school, we had reading and we had vocabulary. I remember for vocabulary, we had to take a dictionary and look up each word and put it with the correct definition of the word. And then some other sentences where we had to fill in the word. But for Reading Language Arts, it's more about reading comprehension. In the Amish, you don't really learn about reading comprehension at all. You just learn, like I just got done saying, memorizing the words, especially for a test. We had to memorize the words to put them with the correct definition, and most of the time, memorization is how we did it, not so much as learning and showing. For example, my GED teacher showed a lot of videos to help us remember stuff, or pictures to help us remember stuff. Well, in the Amish, they don't have videos and pictures in school, so it's totally different. In the Amish school, every morning we had to do writing, and this was 8th grade. We had to write our name in print. And my teacher made up some kind of verse. The first line we had to write in cursive. The next line we had to write in German cursive. And then we had to color the picture. Now, we did learn how to write German cursive, but I don't remember what it means, so I can't even read what it says, because in school we had like the alphabets in German cursive. But also in all of our schoolwork at the Amish school, we have to write in cursive. Now, I mentioned social studies. I passed my social studies GED test, the first test I did. We never learned about our rights as a citizen. And we don't have, for example, this thing. I never really knew what this was until I started my GED. We didn't learn about checks and balances and levels of government and federalism and civil rights. We didn't learn most of those things, just a little bit, which we called geography. So pretty much the subjects that we learned in Amish school was arithmetic, reading, writing, English, vocabulary, geography, and the coloring pictures for art, and spelling. It is super, super basic, and it makes it really hard when someone leaves the Amish because you're not caught up with just basic knowledge that most people would know. Now, a lot of the knowledge that you get in public school maybe is not very important because you might never use it, but if you've never learned of it or never heard of it, at least some of it, science or some math or whatever it might be, then leaving the Amish makes it really hard. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'm glad that I finally got my GED.